Safe and sound at home again. Let the waters roar, Jack. Safe and sound at home again. Let the waters roar, Jack. Long we've tossed on the rolling main. Now we're safe ashore, Jack. Don't forget your old shipmate. Folly, rolly, 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 rido.
Welcome to Cohasset Political Society's Open Forum. My name is Amby, and today we're going to be discussing the recent events, the vice presidential debate. Tim Kaine, the Democratic vice presidential candidate, debated the Republican vice presidential candidate, Mike Pence, on the debate stage down in North Carolina. Today with us we have Marcus Rowland, Josh Rosen, John Keenan, and Jack Factor. Interesting debate. A lot of criticism towards Tim Kaine. Why do you think that was, Marcus?
Because I felt like he had a weak performance. He pre-prepared all of his punchlines.
You have anything to say about that?
And also, he interrupted Mike Pence every 5 seconds.
I don't feel like that was so much of an issue, though, because they were debating.
I think Tim Kaine was to Mike Pence as Donald Trump was to Hillary in the first debate. They were very similar. With the interrupting and sort of like confrontational language.
Wrong. Okay. Interesting parallel there. Sort of like the reciprocal Trump effect on Tim Kaine and Mike Pence. A lot of people talked about Mike Pence's social stances. Mike Pence. I know Josh has expressed some very strong feelings about this, so I'll give the floor to Josh.
Okay, so here's the thing about Mike Pence. Mike Pence horrifies me less than Trump because I know he's not going to blow up Iranian boats out of the water. But on the social issues, he's about as conservative as it gets. I've seen stats that he's, biased stats, by the way, that he's lost his state of Indiana $90 million due to his Religious Freedom Act, which restricts or gives businesses the right to restrict service to LGBTQ members.
These are the laws similar to North Carolina's?
Similar to Pat McCrory's North Carolina, yes.
For those of you who don't know, the Religious Freedom Acts that Josh is talking about allow a store owner, say a baker, to reject an LGBT customer, so that like if they feel uncomfortable serving an LGBT customer, they don't have to.
And can I elaborate on that? The thing is, it's not that it's that horrible, because I'm not saying you shouldn't give businesses the right to choose who they serve to. They should have I'm not saying if they should or should not have the right to decline service to someone, but it's negatively impacted Indiana in such a way that it should be reformed.
Well, I don't see how it's that different to segregation during the 60s.
You can draw that comparison.
I think segregation is on a much larger scale. Segregation affected upwards of half the population of certain states. LGBTQ make up most generously, I've heard 10% at the highest, 5% maybe. The exact numbers are unknown because a lot of people don't effectively report on that in census taking. In my opinion, I don't see that as a huge issue. I think that people should have the right to reject customers if they feel uncomfortable serving them.
And then businesses have the right to leave the state and boycott it.
Boycott the
state.
The state, like forcing them to, or?
No, they're just leaving. Businesses are leaving North Carolina and Indiana.
So Josh, you're not socially opposed to it, but you're more...
I'm not economically opposed to it. Socially, I'm opposed to it. But...
So you're not against the idea of businesses choosing who they can serve?
Correct.
You're just against the fact that businesses are leaving due to his acceptance of the act?
Yeah.
Okay.
So businesses are leaving because they have the choice on whether or not to serve people?
Yeah. No, businesses are leaving because they are against Mike Pence's policies.
Okay. Personally, I'd value personal freedoms over the group. I don't believe that. I think it is sad and a poor business decision when somebody does reject a customer, but I think that if they feel strongly about that, they should be able to do that.
Let's also throw out there that this isn't too dissimilar from the 1960s civil rights movement, and which before that, a business could fire someone just for being a woman or for being gay, and you can't do that anymore. But it's not that dissimilar to not serve someone.
I would disagree with that because when segregation was a big problem in this country is because there were Jim Crow laws on the books that you had to have like a 7-foot wall in your restaurant separating white and black people. I don't think that's the case here. It's more of if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. So it's like, it's all about, what's the word?
Choice.
Yeah, choice. It's all about choice instead of you have to do this. So I don't think that's really an even comparison.
And the free
Fair
market, in theory, the free market will correct that. If
It has.
if they're rejecting, if businesses are rejecting customers, then they're not going to do as well in the market, and they're going to go out of business.
Well, I saw a statistic that North Carolina lost almost like $100 billion due to their bathroom policies as well.
Pat McCrory's social policies are much more strenuous than Mike Pence's. That is true.
I'd say that I'd say that the social issue though is just like one small aspect of like Mike Pence's campaign or platform. But I do think that in general he does have a better temperament than Tim Kaine for vice president.
The thing about Tim Kaine is that debate. I'm not gonna say if I'm for or against Tim Kaine, but I didn't feel that debate accurately depicted what we've seen a lot of Tim Kaine doing. Tim Kaine is a very successful politician, and he's usually known for being the quiet, level-headed guy. He's not going to get anyone riled up, and that was one of the negative aspects about that Democrats were saying when Hillary chose him as her VP. People were saying it should have been a Cory Booker or an Elizabeth Warren who would have got the Obama coalition riled up and gotten the millennial votes excited. And Tim Kaine was a quiet guy making dad jokes off on the side of Virginia.
That is true. Do you think that he adjusted his performance at the debate to try and suit that need?
I think Robbie Mook and whoever did debate prep for Tim Kaine probably said something along the lines of, you have a chance to rattle Mike Pence. You have a chance to separate him from Trump's beliefs and Trump's platform. And I think Tim Kaine tried his best to do that.
I felt like Mike Pence spent the whole time refuting everything that that Trump was accused of saying, despite numerous records of Trump having said those things.
Where do you guys think Trump and Pence disagree?
A lot.
So I think that Trump obviously says a lot of things that he may or may not wish that he has said. I think that personally, I think that Pence is more of like a janitor to Trump's comments. He kind of cleans it up and makes it like ready for the media.
The term is pensing. Media's coined that when he goes out on camera and refutes everything.
Yeah, so I think that I think as vice president, he might hold Trump back on some of his more like outrageous policies, and try to like limit him and bring him more back to like not like the Republican Party.
And to add on to that, let's remember, this is a rumor, it's never proven true or false, but when Donald Trump was looking for VPs, there was a rumor that Trump's staff went to Ohio governor,
John Kasich.
John Kasich, and said, look, you can be in charge of foreign and domestic affairs if you're Trump's VP. And Kasich was like, what? That's not what the vice president does. So it's possible we're looking at a very different vice president in Trump's cabinet.
A vice president with more power
Yeah.
and say over decisions.
With Dick Cheney versus a Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think he would definitely have more power than previous vice presidents.
I think that Mike Pence is there to help Trump get some of his positions through Congress. I think that's one of the main reasons why he picked him. Because Trump, let's face it, he doesn't really know the legislative process. I'm not going to deny that. But Mike Pence does. He's been in and out of it for really his whole life.
Mike Pence did run for Speaker of the House and lost to John Boehner.
In the Senate.
Yeah.
Or in the
House.
House.
Yeah, House.
Okay, interesting. How do you think Mike Pence differs from From the current Speaker of the House, Mr. Paul Ryan.
I'd say that Mike Pence is more conservative than Paul Ryan, who's more of a moderate, in my opinion. I think they both are on the right, but Mike Pence is like further over.
Yeah.
Do you like Paul Ryan as a Trump supporter?
I don't really have an opinion on him. I mean, I think he is just trying to do what he can to stay in office in his state.
I feel like Paul Ryan has not a clear stance on Trump either. He keeps supporting them and then not supporting him and then supporting him based on what his polling data shows.
Yeah, Paul Ryan is in a very tricky spot, obviously. In technically kind of endorsing Trump, despite Trump not being a traditional Republican, not being in line with a lot of Paul Ryan's own beliefs. And the thing that I think is going to be interesting. Let's say Trump wins the election. Who do you think is going to be the head of the Republican Party? You think people are going to continue going back to Paul Ryan and saying, "Oh, Trump said this again. What do you think about that?" Or do you think Donald Trump is going to be the head of the GOP?
I think it entirely depends on what Trump says. If he continues with his crazy remarks, then they will follow Paul Ryan. But if he tones it down, then they might follow him.
Well, do you think that once he gets into office, he's going to disregard his crazy remarks?
Not in the least bit.
So you think he's going to try and build a wall?
He's been trying out these policies for almost 20 years now.
He's not building a wall.
He is.
He's not building a wall.
He's not building
He
a
is.
wall.
He can't afford to build a wall, and
I'd
Congress
agree.
won't give him the wall.
Congress will definitely
Congress
not give
already
him the
passed a
money.
bill to build a wall on the southern border. All they just need to do is give funding for it.
We don't have that money. The money doesn't exist in the United
What
States.
is that, like $13 billion people are
More
saying?
than
that's what it's
$25 billion I saw?
Yeah,
money
we have that
doesn't
kind of money
exist.
just lying around.
Yeah.
Can't even balance the budget.
Definitely agree more with the left here that he's not actually going to build a wall. I do think that he would increase the deportation.
ICE.
ICE, yeah, who supported him, well, technically supported him, and increase the more border control to secure the border. But there's no actual money, or it's just unreasonable to actually build a wall.
What spending cuts does Trump propose?
He wanted to cut the Department of Education,
Really?
agriculture.
Wanted to increase military spending.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely wanted to.
Both candidates advocate for increased military spending.
Doesn't surprise
I
me.
don't know Jill Stein's position. I know that Gary Johnson has advocated for lowering military spending.
He's
This-
against
this-
interventions, right?
Yeah, this is coming from a man who doesn't know where Aleppo is.
Or the,
Not that I
Doesn't-
dislike
or the
Gary
leader
Johnson.
of North Korea.
Yeah,
And doesn't know a
I
foreign
am a
leader.
fan of Gary Johnson, but he does sometimes waffle on the foreign policy.
Yeah, but he's
stuff.
got Bill Weld there, who knows his foreign policy very well.
I feel like if Bill Weld was running for president
Oh, yeah.
with Johnson as his vice president, that would be
Completely different take.
completely different.
But Bill Weld doesn't have the clout in the libertarian community, and his issues, how he feels in the issues doesn't even support libertarian policy.
Well, I feel like most of the votes going towards the Libertarian aren't true Libertarians. They're just
Protest.
dissatisfied voters.
Yeah,
Both parties.
I think we can be fair and say that most of the votes that, specifically the millennial votes that Gary Johnson and Bill Weld are getting are spoiler votes, they're protest votes.
But I still think that those votes are important because let's say that he does get over 5% in the general election, then the Libertarian Party will receive federal funding for the next election. So the Libertarian Party will get a huge boost and be able to get their name out there, as they say.
Yeah, this election will definitely help the Libertarians if they can keep their across election momentum going. They might someday end up being like the Liberal Democrats in Britain. Does anybody know what the Liberal Democrats are?
No.
For a while.
For those of you who don't know, the Liberal Democrats are the United Kingdom's centrist party. There used to be 2 parties in Britain. Now there's 6. But the 3 main parties are the Conservatives, who are equitable to the Republicans, equitable. There's the Labour Party, which is equitable to the Democrats, and the Liberal Democrats, which is the Lib Dems. That's how they're referred to in Britain. The idea of their party is that they're a centrist party, and that's sort of the general gist with the Libertarians too.
Their election process is completely different there, which allows for 6 parties to even exist.
Actually, the British have first past the post as well as we do. So same.
Yes, but you don't elect a candidate. You elect a party who picks a prime minister.
Well, you actually in your local district in Britain, you elect a candidate. Most people in Britain don't care about the candidate; they just care about the party that the candidate is part of. But theoretically,
You're not voting for a face, you're voting for an idea.
yeah.
Going back to Libertarian Party in the future, what do you think the other two parties' roles are going to be coming up? What do you think the GOP does if Trump loses, or even if he wins? What do you think their party looks like? Do they have to deal with populism and all these Republicans who don't support free trade and traditional things on the Republican ticket but liked Trump?
I would say that most likely they're going to try to bring back to the Republican Party of like the Jeb Bush, the Marco Rubio. They're going to try to double down on that and try to just slowly but surely regain the trust of the Trump supporters.
Yeah, I think the GOP will swing back to the center. Leaders like Paul Ryan are definitely waiting for that opportunity for Trump to crumble. If Trump doesn't crumble, I think we're going to have a vastly different political structure or political arena in the future.
It could almost be the splitting of the GOP into 2 different sects if he continues to be strong, well-liked.
I doubt the GOP will split. I think more and more GOP voters, or the GOP voters that dislike Trump, will just split off permanently into like the Libertarians. And the Libertarians will probably become less radical on their social issues, and maybe a little more moderate on their economic ones as well.
But let's not exclude the Democratic Party. What do you think happens to them in a Hillary presidency, or if Hillary loses? Because they had populism on their side also with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, if Hillary loses, the Bernie crowd will definitely take control.
Bernie definitely dragged the Democrats way more to the left than they were in the past.
He dragged a lot. Well, he did what Obama did in 2008, and he dragged a lot of millennials, people who wouldn't traditionally vote or even care about elections, into the political fold.
Yeah, he did bring out a new crowd of voters, just like, Trump's not doing that, but...
Well, he does. He's bringing new voters, not millennials. He's bringing in people who think the media...
The Reagan hacks.
The silent majority, we'll call it. The people who feel they've been left behind by the establishment and their views aren't echoed in today's political landscape.
Yeah, I do think that with Trump, I do think there are a lot of like closet Trump supporters that haven't yet shown their support because they're like either afraid to be like judged or because of their views. But I do think that across the country there are a lot of voters that do support Trump that aren't public about it because it's such a controversial opinion.
They're with Trump, not for Trump.
It's like Brexit. Every poll showed Brexit was not going to pass. England was not going to leave the EU. But people got to the polls and they said, "Screw it! I'm taking my country back," and they voted to leave the EU. And I think a lot of that is going to happen this election. We didn't see any of this in the primaries at all. There's no evidence that this is actually happening. But people who don't want to openly say I'm with Donald Trump because of his social issues or the clout that it brings are going to get to the election and they're going to vote for Trump.
Now, do you think, say you were an English voter over the summer, would you have voted for Brexit personally?
I would have voted to stay.
I would have voted to stay.
I would have voted to stay
as
well.
an English citizen.
I would have voted to leave.
It's not surprising.
Any reason?
Why do you feel?
How's the pound, by the way?
It's dropped to
pound has
1.27. No,
Just
Their
dropped today.
economy, their
It
economy
dropped.
has recovered since.
no. It's
pound
when
just dropped
Theresa
over this
May came out with saying that they will go through with Brexit. It dropped to 1.27 to the dollar. It's been the lowest it's been in 30 years.
And it's been on its path to recovery. I mean, the reason why I would vote to leave is one of the main reasons why many people from Britain voted to leave was to regain control of their borders and sort of fight this globalism that the EU has been spouting for the past few years.
Well, they had control of their borders. They were not part of the Schengen area. For those who don't know, the Schengen area was a collection of European countries where there were no border controls and no customs.
they include all of the European Union member states except Ireland and Great Britain, and with the inclusion of Switzerland.
And Norway.
Yeah.
Norway is part of Schengen.
Well,
I believe.
specifically, what they were trying to control in their borders was they didn't want Syrian refugees to be able to go to England, which the EU was fighting them. They said this is an agreement that the EU made to allow Syrian refugees into the EU. You're part of the EU, so you have to do it, and they didn't like that. So that's why. That was one of the main clouds of the Vote Leave campaign.
A poll after the vote showed a good third of those who had voted to leave changed their mind due to the economic
But
flashback.
a lot of that's due to the polls that were coming out before Brexit. No company, the stock market hadn't adjusted to the fact that Brexit was even a possibility. So when it happened, everyone was selling. The stock market dropped a lot. I don't know the specifics on it.
Yeah, a lot of it was like financial panic and not.
And I think
The effects
we're
of
gonna have to wait and see the effects of Brexit in like the years to come, because when they actually sign into the legislation like that they're leaving, which won't be for another few years or something, until they actually legitimately leave like on paper.
Could be gone in the next 2 years
Yeah.
if they sign the paper.
So in the next few
immediately.
years we'll see like how it goes along, but right now it's just pretty much just the initial reaction and the stock market recovering.
But will Brexit actually happen? Is the good question. Because I know Theresa May, Britain's Prime Minister, has numerous times advocated that Brexit means Brexit, but a lot of people have speculated that Brexit won't actually happen.
I feel like she's testing the water to see if her citizens really agree with it.
I think Brexit will happen, but I think England's going to do their best to orchestrate a Canada-like trade deal with the other countries in the EU and America especially. They're really counting on countries like us and Canada to help them out.
Will the transatlantic trade treaty,
Trans-Pacific.
TTA or something like that? No.
The Trans-Pacific.
They're in the process of negotiating a similar deal with America. So there's one with America and the Pacific, and one with America and Europe. And there's been a lot of reaction against the one with America in countries like Germany and Poland, where this really like alt-right has had a renaissance in the past couple of years under the Alternative for Deutschland party in Germany, and the PIS party in Poland, and so on.
The runner-up to the Austrian, the primarial, like the
presidential election.
The presidential election was a fascist.
Actually, the election results were found unconstitutional, and they're having a revote.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So who knows? The other guy is from the Green Party. Interesting.
It's two very opposite ends of this.
But he views himself as a communist. So
I'm sure the people there
Communist
are
versus
really
the
happy with their
Yeah.
choices.
You pick.
well, the centrist party has found the Green Party a little more tenable, so they all dropped out because the
Didn't want to split the vote.
OFP Österreich Freedom Party, which is where the fascist candidate comes from, they didn't want him to win because their votes were split.
Kind of like a Nader situation in 2000.
Almost reverse. It was almost if Ralph Nader had dropped out and endorsed
Oh
Al
yeah,
Gore.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Picking between a communist and a fascist is almost as bad as this election.
Yep.
that it is. This time we're picking between, yeah.
Don't say.
I
know what you're
won't say
gonna
it, but I do have some negative opinions of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
Can I say bad words on this?
No.
Okay, I was going to quote South Park.
Well, on that note, yeah, so very, very interesting dynamic in both Europe and America.
And an alt-right emerging in both.
Yeah, they're all right in America. It's
Horrifying.
becoming scary. Yeah.
I had a press conference in D.C. It's no longer just a conspiracy that people on the left come up with. It's real.
It's like the re-rise of fascism.
Re-rise of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, David
the
Duke's
Nazi
running for
Party.
Senate in
David Duke
Louisiana.
is running for Senate.
in
It's
Louisiana.
official now.
Don't follow him on Twitter. Twitter won't verify him. It's actually really funny. He's really mad.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of strange because in the 1930s, the original fascism came out of like the Great Depression, and this second wave of alt-rightism seems to come out of essentially nowhere.
It's coming out of
it's coming out of
racism, a lot of it. It's
think it's
coming out of
I
Syria.
think it's coming out of globalization.
Yes.
Increasingly,
Yes.
because
The
as more and more groups are like mixed into typically like white countries, they feel like they're being
Taken over
They feel like
almost.
they're being taken over almost by other races or like cultural groups.
Well, America's always been rather racially diverse, and our fascist movement in the 1930s was very weak, indeed.
Well, I think one of the reasons why the alt-right is having so much success is because they're able to attract those young white college voters who really just are starting to form their political identity. If you look, there are a bunch of alt-right advocates giving speeches at colleges.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah, him.
Oh, yeah.
He's only kind of outright.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Is it? I don't know.
Who knows?
Yiannopoulos.
Yiannopoulos.
What's his
Doesn't matter.
ethnicity?
Don't give him the
It
credit.
doesn't matter.
He claims to be alt-right, but a lot of alt-right leaders wouldn't claim he's an alt-right. A lot of alt-right leaders identify the alt-right based on how closed-minded they are. Milo Yiannopoulos, however you pronounce it, is openly gay.
Well,
He's alt-right in that he's pro-freedom of speech and anti-feminism, but anti-feminism in the sense he thinks all feminists are like scream in your face liberal arts college people.
So he's confused more than anything about
He's
what
not
he wants
really
to do.
like anti-19th Amendment or anything.
Okay, well, interesting predictions for the future of America. Maybe in the future Donald Trump will be seen as a moderate. Who knows? But for now, that's all the time we have. So thanks for dropping in. This has been Coas Political Society's Open Forum. Good night.